So is it necessary to engage some forgiveness in order to relax?
Very good.
From the world of thought
Some
into
forgiveness of self. How do you forgive yourself? Because forgiveness, before, is like giving thought space. Forgiveness, giving space, giving room, so you make it move. Because when there is pain, when there is whatever it is bugging you, it's frozen. That's what gives you pain. When something is frozen inside you and you really believe it is real, you see, and it doesn't move. So you move it. And when you move it, it moves through the body without the story, because the story freezes it again. Okay? You let it move on its own energy and it dissipates. You see, just like a cloud, very dense cloud, ready to burst and become rain. Okay? And as you expand it more and more and more, it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Finally, if you spread it way enough, of course you got nothing but white clouds or no clouds at all. So, if we do the same with a contracted negative feeling. So how do you forgive then?
But there's no doing in that, because the relaxation, it feels to me like the relaxation that happens couldn't be a doing. It couldn't be a doing, because it can only come from sameness melting into sameness.
Exactly.
Not.
So there has to be the understanding, and this is the key here, thank you, that forgiveness happens when we realize we're not the doer, we are being lived. You see? Because as long as you think, this is my life, now I've got to work it. You see? Just like you work your car, or work your body, or you work your clothes. These things belong to you, but they're not you. You see? So you work at them. But being you cannot work with. And being is all that there is. So being is life. And when you have that understanding, that basic understanding, then you begin to see how thought and awareness work together. They're not, they're actually opposite, but in their opposing force, they need each other. I know it sounds paradoxical here. Please ask me if maybe I'm missing something of explaining here. But see, they're totally opposite, because thought has to do with history. Thought has to do with your past. Thought has to do with what made you appear what you are now. It's the evolution of thought that appears as the world and your body. And we know that as we study the cells, the DNA, the very structure of consciousness within the cells, the body. Okay? So we see that, whereas presence is that sense of being. I am being, I am here, but it is that sense that makes everything possible. It is only that sense of I. But we make that felt sense of I, which is pure presence, we make it personal. And it is that viewpoint that creates all the suffering and contradictions and confusion in the world, you see? But when we see them as they actually are, then we see that they both have to be combined in order to live the life. You cannot do one without the other, you see? You cannot do without thought. It's not possible. Because thought is that everything that appears, everything that you think about, everything that you sense. But at the same time, although thought comes from that, you see, at the same time, it is awareness that is triggering it and bringing it alive. See, that felt sense of I, that presence of being. So some of the things I heard were, this is the first one. If you say accept, we say accept, but if there's no separate life, who is it that accepts? See? You feel it though? There is no one who accepts. There's immediate understanding. Do we see that clearly? Yeah. In the same way with understanding. You see? As long as you're trying to understand, that's what confusion is. That's what the disturbance is. That's what frustration is. I'm trying to understand. Stop. Don't try to understand. Just understand. Just look. You see? And that becomes understanding. As long as there's any effort, thought, you are confusing and blocking the very presence you are. And presence is your light, is God. You see? Let's call it God, presence, okay? If God is all that there is, then anything apart from God, then God cannot be complete, right? Do you understand? If God is complete, then anything apart from God, then God is not complete. If something could be apart from him, her, it. Okay, you're with me. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right. So therefore, if nothing is apart, that means that's who you are. You see? How can it be anything else? There can be no separation in the slightest idea. And when you begin to understand that, you begin to see the difference between thought and awareness. The presence is present. From the presence, everything arises. Thought arises from presence. Memory arises from presence. Love arises from presence. Fear arises from presence. When I say presence, I mean that ultimate awareness of is. Okay? I am. Everything arises from that.
Unmanifested becomes manifested.
That's right. We can say that. We can say the manifest and unmanifest. Yes. That's it. So the appearance, the presence is the unmanifest, but it's everything. If right now you're not aware, you're not even dead. You never were, which is impossible. You see? Can you never not be? We cannot conceive of it because awareness is, you see? And by the same token, it is everything. Everything that you experience, everything that you can feel or think or hear is that presence, is that awareness. Everything comes from it. But at the same time, what it comes from presence is thought. Because it's a movement. And thought appears, it becomes manifest. So anything manifest is a result of that source of presence. But presence itself is. Now, when we can see this very, very clearly, then the two become one, you see? Then there is no longer judgment, condemning, comparing, whatever.